What actually I would be covering today is it's called Hibernate. What we have done till now is right. It's a JDBC Java database connection, right? W- The thing is, in these days, nobody use JDBC. What we had, used just before we had seen the examples, right? But to have a idea of how it works, how the connectivity takes place, and how it works internally, we should have done that. So I covered those sessions, but there is a framework what we call is a Hibernate, and there are many other frameworks which is used for that. So the Hibernate is somewhat like ORM tool. It's called the object relation mapping, and the name behind is something like uh, I had done something similar to ORM only. What example I was showing you. So the concept of Hibernate or ORM tool is, it tells that whatever the Java program you are writing, whatever the Java Pojo class is called plain old Java object, like employee class you have, or address class you have, or student class you have, or employee class you have, right? These all classes has only the members, and that's all, right? We write employee class employee, then employee ID, employee name, and all this stuff, right? That's what we do. Okay, then we must have a table according to whatever the Java class name is there. So we should have a kind of mapping there. So if you're writing something like your employee class here, okay, you write something like, okay, class employee, then here you need to create one table employee. Okay, now what actually benefit it gives you? Table employee, now it has integer ID. Okay, then it has name string, and then string address. Okay, so corresponding to here it will be integer ID, varchar name, and then varchar address. Varchar means variable character. It is a data type of MySQL. Now this table could be in any database. Okay, so this could be in your MySQL if you're installing, or it could be in Oracle if you're installing. It can be in Postgres. I'm talking about these databases. Okay, or it could be HANA, 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 that SAP's database, or it could be MongoDB, or EHCache. Sorry, not EHCache. Yeah, there are many databases which you can use it. You create the table in any of the database, doesn't matter which database you're using. Now, when you run your application, okay, what actually happens is, there is in between there are two things which works. One is Hibernate. So this is my Hibernate, and here is MySQL plugin, or you can say if you're using Oracle, then Oracle plugin. If you're using Postgres plugin, and this is your database. So if you're using Oracle, use Oracle plugin. If you're using MySQL, use MySQL plugin. If you're using Postgres, use Postgres. Now the question is, what actually happens? It provides you abstraction, it provides you neutral environment to write queries. So what actually happens is, whenever you need to insert data into DB, or you need to get the data from DB, or you need to update data, or you need to delete data, you need to join table, you need to do whatever. Okay, whatever you want to do, you can do it with the help of Hibernate. Or what actually does is, Hibernate, you just to Hibernate you just need to tell what is your Java class. Okay, and you need to tell what kind of database you're using. So here the Hibernate will ask you for some configuration file. I'll show you everything. So you provide those configuration files in Hibernate, that okay, these are the classes is there present, and these are the database credentials, this is the data type, this is what I'm providing you. So when you try to insert some data into the DB, if you want to write, so what actually you need to do, you need to first what we did in SQL, we written something like insert into table, and then values, and then you put all these things. Now suppose you don't know the syntax of how to insert into the DB, you haven't worked in SQL, you're not a SQL guy. So how do you do that? So the thing is, the one of the main reason is not main reason, I would say. One of the reason is you don't have to remember the SQL query for any of the databases, okay? Be it MySQL or be it Oracle or something. You just need to know the methods of Hibernate through which you can insert the data. So simply you need to call some methods, some APIs of Hibernate, and you can insert the data into the DB, okay? And Hibernate actually internally what it does is it sees what kind of database you're using. If you're using MySQL, it'll create the query internally of MySQL type. If you're using Oracle, it will create the database query according to Oracle. And okay, so sorry. So you don't have to worry about data type. You don't have to worry about how to write syntax. You don't have to worry about how to get the data, how to insert and all. Apart from that, it gives you a very good flexibility of having the cache. So there is a cache concept here. So just imagine, I'll just clean this one. This is your database which returns 100,000 records, okay, to my application. Now, I want to show all these records here, whatever 1000 or 10 million, suppose 10 million records, okay, or maybe 1 million records, okay. Now, when I need to show it, right, what I will do, I'll create a connection, JDBC connection, I'll go and get it from the DB, and I'll pass it result set and print it here, that's all right. Again, suppose you navigated to the page and again you came back, okay, to the same page. Again, it will query the DB, again it will get the data, right? So every time you are refreshing the page or every time you are coming to and forth, right? So it is actually establishing a connection, it is fetching the data. So it suppose it takes 2 seconds. So every time you're wasting your two precious 2 seconds. 2 seconds is very precious if you see, right? If you open some website and if you have to wait for 2 seconds, that is a very long period, I would say, okay. So what actually Hibernate does is once you get the data from the DB, okay, you select it and it comes back here, it puts into their cache. Now next time if you refresh the page or you go back to some page again and you come back here, it will not make a SQL statement, SQL query to the DB to get the data again until and unless there is some change in the DB and it has to refresh it. Otherwise it will simply fetch from the cache. It doesn't have to create the connection to the DB and get it again. So there are many features other than that is there, but these three fours are very important. That why Hibernate is so famous and why 99.99 companies, I think, they are using Hibernate. So it's almost obsolete that people are using JDBC. So don't be sad that you had to go through the sessions and all, but that is very useful, I would say, because that is very important to learn the concept how it happens internally, because even Hibernate also does establish a JDBC connection internally, okay, not externally. It does not let you know that they are doing all this stuff under the hood, but it does do that. So it's better to understand in order to tomorrow if you are using Hibernate, you stuck somewhere, you don't know how to proceed, there is some problem you are facing, how to resolve it, right? So you should be knowing that okay, there is some problem is going on, this is how actually internally Hibernate works internally. In order to do that, you must understand JDBC connectivity, and that's the reason I covered that portion, and you should be knowing. Hibernate is little vast, I will not be covering all the topics, okay. It's a complete framework, okay. So I'm just giving you the introductory part. CRUD operations, I'll show you how to do that. Later things you can simply learn about by surfing internet and all these things. But the thing is how it works, why it is needed, how to connect to the DB using the Hibernate, how to insert, delete, update, all these operations I will be covering, okay. So let's get going. We'll see how actually we should do. There are few configurations is required which you don't need to remember. Even I don't remember. You can get it online, you can find out the configuration file. Anyhow, I had done many examples for my previous trainees whom I give the training. So I have a configurations file ready. I'll show you the step by step how to do that. Okay, but configurations wise you don't have to remember. Okay, you just need to understand what actually it does, how to set it up, how to run it, how to use it. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I'm creating one Hibernate example project. Create new package com dot orm example dot model. Now model means, okay, I'll write class as employee, and I have one int empid, string emp name, string address, so we have three fields which we want to insert into the database. So I'll write one main app where I will be doing all this stuff. Okay, so if you see here, okay, what actually we need to do here is I want to store the my this employee details into the DB. What generally we do, we write SQL statement, right? We first put the library inside that, right? So we'll create one folder, say write library, and I'll get it from here. Okay, so MySQL connector I have added successfully, no issues. Now we generally write our we write something like right DAO, and in DAO what we do generally is here we write save employee, delete employee, and all this stuff, right? And for that we need to have some connectivity. We write SQL connection details, right? Connection con equals to driver load and all this stuff, right? We do, but here I will not be doing anything at all like that. Okay, the thing is we need to store the employee record into the DB. Okay, and first let me see which DB I have. So I'll create new DB. Let me show what are the databases I have. So I have Java session. Okay, so as you can see, there is no table as employee here, right? Am I right? So no table, only one table is student. I'll drop that also. Let's drop it. Drop. Okay. Drop table student. Okay, so if I do show table now, I don't have any table, right? Now the benefit of using Hibernate is you don't even create, you don't have to create the table also. It will automatically create the table with the name of whatever the Java class is here, and with all these fields automatically it will create the table as well for us. Now what are the things we need to do? As I told you, we need to have one configuration file. So that configuration file, I'll just take it from here so that I don't have to create it again and again. So we'll see here. Okay, so let me just copy this and I'll explain you about this file. So let me copy, let me go here, paste it. Okay, so I have one hibernate.cfg file. So what actually it does is, uh, you can here you need to define, there are a few things you need to define here. One, what type of database you're using. Okay, if you're using MySQL, what is the database name, what is the username, what is the password, what is the connection string. Okay, and then few configuration of Hibernate. So I'll just explain you things bitwise. Hibernate works kind of in a session. Okay, how, what session means is, whenever you need to connect to the DB, actually it creates a session, okay, between the SQL and your application. And in order to get the session, a session must have few details. What details? It must have what kind of database, what is the username, password, what is the table you are going to update. Okay, all this stuff you need to have it. Now this session session details you need to mention in the hibernate.cfg.xml. So this is the file name that you are bound to write it. You have to write it if you're using XML. Hibernate.cfg.xml. Okay, and inside that there is a open tag XML. I hope everybody knows what is XML, right? So it's a parent root node, this one Hibernate configuration. And then the second thing which comes is session factory. Let me remove this one because we are not using Oracle. Okay, so yeah, so uh, what are the things? So session factory, so to get the session we have to have a session factory which gives a session to connect to the DB. So in session factory we'll be providing all these informations here. So it's saying what is a Hibernate dialect, I mean what kind of dialect, so what language I should talk to DB. So I am telling, okay, you are I'm using MySQL, so let's talk in MySQL dialect. Okay, so I'm telling Hibernate to talk to the database in MySQL way because I'm providing the MySQL. Okay, then I'm telling, okay, Hibernate JDBC dot driver. So this is MySQL driver. I'm telling connect to MySQL driver, and then JDBC MySQL localhost, and here I'll put Java session. Okay, so this is the Java session DB which I am using. This is username, this is password, and here if you see here I'm giving update. What does this mean is, it means that what kind of operation I want to do. Update means if there is no table it will create the table, it will insert the data, and it will do the things. Next time if I run the application again, it will not create the table again, it will append the data into the table only. So there are few things you can put it here. You can put it something like create hyphen drop. That means every time I run the application you drop the existing table, recreate it again, put the data again. So if you do create also, it will do the same thing. So I'm putting as update, so it will create the table, and then next time if I run it, it will do the update. Next thing is here, if you want to see the SQL statement what actually Hibernate is using to insert into the DB or get the data from the DB, you can set it as a true. Okay, so it will show you that, okay, if you write show SQL, right, it'll do that. And the next thing is we need to provide the what class I am going to use it for inserting the data. So I will tell that, okay, com model. So I'm telling that, okay, I'm using employee class and I want the same table to have been inserted into the DB. Okay, so I have defined this employee. Okay, and so employee if I have defined, that means I'm telling that this data, whatever the data I will be putting into this, right, so the corresponding to this Java class, there has to be one table into the DB. Now there is one more thing is left. We need to have a Hibernate jar. So I will download Hibernate core jar. I think I will have this, so I'll not download it. Okay, I'll take this one. You can download any Hibernate Core 436, and I'll put it here in the library, and I'll add it to the build path. So I have added two jars, Hibernate Core and MySQL connector. So MySQL connector is to connect to the DB using MySQL, and Hibernate is to write the query. Now, how does Hibernate understand that, okay, what are the column name, what is the table name, and all these things, right? So you can, if you don't provide anything, right, you just need to annotate something like this, that okay, this is going to be the table name. Sorry, not this. Sorry, you have to tell that entity. What is happening here? Type entity is deprecated. Okay, so it might be deprecated in the latest release, I think. 436. Okay, anyways, so this entity, what I'm telling that okay, employee entity, it's the class. So we are defining that okay, entity, this employee is entity, and next you can say that something like ID. What actually it will do is, I'll tell you. Okay, so what we are doing is we are telling that okay, at the rate generated, that means 1 second. One second, I think I have imported the wrong version of jar, so just let me see. It's 436 final. Okay. Six final. We'll copy this one. Let me remove. Okay, and just let me. Okay, so I have these classes. Okay, fine. Okay, so now I have to tell Hibernate that okay, consider this as an entity. Entity means consider this as a class. Okay, I think it has been deprecated. Anyways, no problem. It will work in any way. They might have changed it to some other name. So entity, I'm telling that okay, entity means I'm using the Hibernate annotations entity, right? One second, just let me confirm that. Okay, Java X persistent entity. So by default, is importing this org. It should not import org. It should import Java X. Okay, so I'm doing something wrong here. Uh, okay, it has only this jar. Just let me see what are the dependent jars I have to give. I think I'm missing some jar, other jars. So just let me see 1 second. Actually, to set up this, what are the jar is needed, I need to check it 1 second. Target classes, Maven archiver, properties. Okay. So we'll do one thing. I think that is a better idea. Uh, Instead of that, I'll use Maven because there are some dependent jars which is missing. I'll quickly do one thing. I'll tell you about this Maven thing. What actually this is. Okay, so example. Okay, so once create, it's called the Maven project, and what actually this Maven does is these days generally people are using. So what actually it does is whatever the dependency I'm adding it manually here, right? Downloading the jar and then putting into the library, add into that library, right? So instead of that, what I can do is if you create a Maven project, it's called the Maven is a build cycle, just like Ant tool where you build the code and all these things, right? It's a build environment where you and the Java code you can write in src main Java. The properties file like XML file or properties file, you can do this, write it here. Whatever the test cases you want to write, you can write it here. And whatever the XML file, okay, whatever the dependency, whatever the jars, what you need to add it here, you simply need to add some kind of dependency here. So as you can see here in this example, I had used the same thing. So I don't have to dig it through that. Okay, what are the things I will be needing? So I have to simply add these things into this pom.xml. So I'll just show you here. So this is my pom.xml file. This is called the project object model. And here, whatever the dependencies, uh, whatever the jars I need, as you write Hibernate core, I was downloading Hibernate 436 final. Then the MySQL, right? I need to download it and then put it there, whether it's a correct version or not, or any issues, right? You don't have to worry about here. Here, what you can do is you can simply put it inside the dependency tag, dependency, and then the group ID. What is the your package name? What is your jar name? What is the version of that? Okay, then again MySQL connector, then org Java assist is something like that. This one is right. And once you run it, you know select it, you run it. So Java application. Okay, there is no main type. Okay, sorry, I forgot to copy these files here. So we'll copy all this stuff, copy and put into the src main Java, and copy this hibernate.cfg, put into the main resources. Okay, that's it. Nothing else I did. I'll just remove this project. Okay, so everything is fine now. So what I did is hibernate.cfg. I have put into the src main resources. This is where our this one will be com orm app is this one where our application will start, and this DAO where I will be writing all the statement how to insert and all, and this is the class which I want to persist. Okay, so and in pom.entry I have written all the dependency, whatever the jars I will be needing, right? So those things I have mentioned here. So now if I write it something like, okay, I need to have a at the rate entity. Yeah, now it is coming. Okay, so this entity class, I'm telling that okay, this employee is an entity type, that is a treat, it is a treat this class as a table in the DB. And then ID, I want to generate it automatically. I want to have a a unique ID generator, and I want to tell that okay, this should be the primary key of the table main identifier, and again it will be Java X ID. And then there you can say something like generated value. Okay, just you need to tell that okay, it should be it will start from 1 and go on as it is. Okay, then you can tell something like it's a column. If you don't even define this one, right, you simply do till this, and you're simply telling that okay, employee would be generated a value, that means it will be automatically get generated, and employee name and address you will be providing. Now what I'm doing here is I'll create one employee object. Employee emp equals to new employee. I'll tell you why it is called the ORM tool. And then you set it as employee dot. Okay, I haven't given the getter setter, right? Made it private, and then I'll just send it. Employee dot set. I'll not set employee ID because it should be automatically generated. I'll simply set name, and then employee dot set address. Okay, so yeah, so these two fields only I'm setting. And once I now I want to insert this into the DB, right? How can I use the Hibernate to insert that? Now how it will get inserted? So actually what I will be doing is I'll passing this object of this class, and I have already annotated this class with at the rate entity, and I am telling that okay, insert this object into the table, and it will not get inserted as the object. Actually it will create the table if table is not existing with employee name, and it will create 3 columns with employee ID, name, address. It will automatically generate one value for employee ID, and then whatever the value, two values I'm passing it here, it will insert these two values. Now I need to configure a few things here in order to insert that. The first thing is this hibernate.cfg XML file what I have given, right? I need to tell Hibernate that okay, there is a hibernate.cfg file. You need to configure that particular file. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll write and see once it reads this file, right, it'll generate this connection factory, and from the connection factory I'm telling session factory, and from session factory I can get the session. It's similar to what I did there, right? Connection factory I had created and all these things, but here actually it's not I will be writing it, it's just I will be using the APIs of Hibernate what it has provided. So just let me create that one. So I'll just copy paste here. I'll just show you what actually I'm trying to do it here is sorry, it's something blunder. Hibernate.util. I'll just example.hibernate.util. I'll just simply write like that, and I'll paste it here. Okay, so what actually it is, this is similar to what I had created, a connection factory, right? It provides you the session factory, and you don't have to remember this code at all. Okay, this you can get it internet, or you don't have to remember at all. So just need to understand configure.new configuration. It does is, right, it takes this hibernate.cfg file, and then it builds the all these apply settings properties file, and from there it gets this session factory. So whatever this session factory you are providing all these data, right, it reads all these information and put into the session factory. So I can have this session factory now whenever I want. I can get it like a session factory dot get session factory, and I will get the session factory, and from there I can get the session, and I can store the data. So here in main app, once I've got this one, right, so I need to get the session factory first, and then from there I can get the session. So we'll write something like session factory equal to session factory dot, sorry, what is there, sorry, it should be util. Get session factory. Okay, so now I have got the session factory. From that I need to get the session. So how will I do that? Session equal to session factory dot open session. So if I do something like open session, okay, so if I do session equals session factory dot open, now I can use this session for doing the transaction. I'll say okay, begin transaction now, and what transaction it will do is that session dot save that employee object. So I'm telling that okay, you save this employee object, and once it is done, session dot, I'll say commit, sorry, session dot get transaction dot commit. So I'm telling that okay, put it that, and then session dot close. Okay, that's it. So what actually it will do is, see, understand this one, this line is very important. So what I'm doing is whatever the information I have provided here is what type of database, what type of connection, what type of language it will talk to, it goes into session factory, as you can see here, session factory tag, right? And using this particular code we get the session factory, we get the hold of all this information, and we use this session factory to get the session. Session is nothing but it's a token, what you can say, to get to the connection, to execute every line of statement, every query. You need to create, open a session, do the transaction, done the transaction, and close the transaction. That's it. Okay, and finish it here, saved in DB. See what I didn't do anything at all, right? In database side, as you can see here, it is still no table, is nothing is there. Now my Hibernate will create the table for me, generate the data, will be generate the ID for me, save the data without writing a single line of SQL statement, right? Everything will be done under the hood. Let me try and run it. Okay, as you can see here, all these it does all this information builder and blah blah blah, all these things it does. It gets this driver manager, if you remember, it gets the connection properties, username, password, it gets all these dialect, SQL dialect, it does all this stuff, get the connection, and finally if you see here, it is calling a something like insert into employee address, employee name, and the values. This is what we use, right, if you remember. Now if I see my DB and if see show table, I will see there is a class employee has been created, and if I describe this table how it has been created, you will see that employee ID, address, and employee name has been created. And even if I select from employee, if I do, you will see that, sorry, I have written 8. So if I do select star from employee, it has generated employee ID automatically, and Bangalore and Divakar. This is what information I had given, right? So let me go and change it again. I'll put Sweta and I'll let it be Bangalore only, and let me just run it now. So again it will go here, it will see, you will see that again the insert statement has happened. And if I do it again, you will see automatically this two has been inserted, Bangalore address and Sweta has been inserted. Okay, and again if I change it to Amika, let it be something, okay, Ayan. So let's see, again this insert has been done. So let's see. So yeah, 1 2 3, and automatically it will keep on incrementing and it'll keep on inserting that. You don't have to know the SQL statement at all, everything is done by this one. Now suppose as you can see here, the employee, whatever the name I have given, it has created the same table, right, employee, and the field name is also EMP ID, address and employee name, just as it is, right? Generally in database we write capital employee, and also we can have something different name. So if you want something like that, if you want to create different name table, you can do something like name equal to, you can write employee TBL. Okay, so you can write something like employee table. Okay, I think this takes only, not applies to, sorry, employee, I think it's a name only if I remember correctly. Just one second, I keep forgetting these things. Okay, yeah, it's table employee only, right? So why it is not coming? Okay, okay, so table hasn't been, org annotations table, I don't know why it keeps on coming. I'm fed up of this org, this should be java x dot persistence. Okay, this is the reason it is not coming. I keep on wondering why I'm doing something. Okay, so whatever you want to give right here, emp or employee underscore tbl. Okay, so if you say employee table, now it will not take the default name, so it will take the employee tbl. Okay, that employee table, and same thing you can put it as here also. You can something write like this, column javax persistence, and you can name as employee underscore id, and here also again you can annotate this as a column, and name equals to employee name, again you can write it here, employee address. Okay, now if I run this, right, it will create a new table, if you'll see, and it will insert the data. As you can see here, insert into the TBL, employee address, employee name, and automatically that will get created. So let me see the table name. Okay, we'll see what are the, so tables. Now employee TBL has been created, so let's select star from employee underscore table. Select star from employee table. Oh, there are two P has come. Okay, anyway, so yeah, so employee underscore id, employee underscore address, employee underscore name, and again see counter has been reset to 1 because it's a different table, and it will start it with again, right? So actually why, now I'll tell you why actually it is called ORM tool is, you are mapping one object to one table, right? So for every class, every object represents your one row into that data, right? So you have created one object here, you will see emp, right? So this emp is holding these informations, and that information is nothing but the one row of it, right? So again, if you create one more object and you do that, you something like this you do. I'll just change it to Sweta, and I'll create one more object emp2, and we'll write something like emp2, and then here again emp2, and the Jasny, and let it be USA. And here while saving, I'll do okay, session dot save and emp2 also, right? So this again, the next object represents the next row in the table, right? So let me insert it, and you will see that it will insert two times. Okay, that means there are two insert statement has been done, and you will see that Amika, sorry, Sweta agency, right? These two information has been stored in the DB. So what actually represents your one employee object represents one row into the table, right? So that's the reason it is called ORM tool, object relation mapping. Your relation is nothing but relational DB, RDBMS. That is what we call is a database, right? It's called relational database management system, RDBMS. So you're mapping this, right? You're mapping this to this row to this column, right? So this becomes a quite, I would say, clear, concise way to do that. Tomorrow, you need to add some you need to make some changes. You can easily change from here. It will automatically change the DB. Tomorrow you want to switch to Oracle, you just have to do it here, that you need to just change it to Oracle dialect. You just need to provide com.oracle jdbc driver. You need to provide the connection string of that. You need to provide username. You need to provide password. That's it. Only 4 lines you have to change. Everything will change to Oracle. But if you use JDBC, what we had done previously, you have to write all the statement, the SQL statement, what you have written again and again and again and again. Okay, so that will create a huge problem for you, once you try to switch to another DB. Okay, so in same way, just like what we had done here, so it's better to write something like this here. So we'll write something like public void insert or save employee, take employee data. So we'll little bit modularize this, and whatever the code I have written here, right, we'll pick it from here, and we'll remove from here and go here. And yeah, that's what we will be doing here. And I'll just remove this, because okay, so this is what we are doing here, and saved in DB. Will now from here I'll simply remove all this stuff. Okay, so we'll simply write something like employee DAO equals to new employee DAO, and then DAO dot save employee. Then again I'll say DAO dot save employee 2. Okay, and we'll run it again. So it will do the same stuff, but that's good, right? So yeah, if you see, it has inserted it again. So this becomes quite handy. And now if you need to get it from the DB, you can do the same thing. It will return you the employee object instead of the record, and see how easy it becomes. Get employee integer employee ID. You need to provide the ID, and rest of the things you need to do the same thing. From here we'll get it here, and we'll create the session factory again. Get the session factory, and get the session, open session, begin transaction. And instead of this, we'll do something like get, and here we need to provide the class of this employee dot class and the ID, whatever the ID you have got it. So provide employee ID. Okay, so what it will return you is employee emp equal to, will typecast because the data type it will return is this one. That's it. So it will return you this emp, and you can simply return this return employee, and that's it. So you don't have to so remember, if you remember that result set, get result set from there, get from that column and all this stuff, you don't have to do it. It automatically gets the data from you by fetching the employee ID. It'll directly give you the employee object, and you can simply from the main you can I'll just comment out these code now because I will not be inserting anymore. I'll just need to get the employee data. So I'll just simply write this one employee DAO, and write DAO dot get employee ID. We'll write something like 3. Okay, and it will return me the employee object, okay, with the employee ID 3, and I can simply show the data, okay, whatever the data I am getting from data from DB. Okay, so we can write something like emp dot, suppose I'll write get name only. Okay, so let's see how it it works. So if you see here, you'll see data from DB Jasni, right? So that means for that particular employee ID, let's see whether employee ID 3 was NC or not. Yeah, right. So you don't have to, even if you want to get address, you can see you can write something like employee object dot get address. Okay, so you can get it all these values. If you see address is USA, right? So you are not doing anything, you are not worrying about how to parse the data, what is the data type, what is everything. It automatically models into your employee type because you have inserted into the employee. It automatically maps your data. But if you see internally, it is doing the same thing what I was doing. Select employee ID, select employee address, this from employee table where employee ID equal to question mark. If you remember that prepare statement I was doing, it is doing something exactly, something not something, exactly the same thing what we did in this JDBC. If you remember this one right here, so this statement we were writing, I think not this one, had done this in employee manager, SRC, in DAO, user DAO, and see select star. So instead of a star they are putting the column name, that is the same thing, where username equals to question mark, where employee ID equal to question mark, right? So it's doing the same thing internally. It is creating all these connections and all this internally, but externally it does not show you. And what you need to worry is about the implementation, sorry, the requirement rather than the implementation. So it's like you're defining, you're declaring things, you're getting things, you don't have to worry about the internal things. So for today I will not be covering any much. I think basic idea I have given you. I'll tell you a little bit more things about Hibernate, what it does, but overall this is what actually Hibernate does. Okay, so this is a very beneficial for what I say big companies, because they keep on changing the DB, they keep on migrating from one platform to another platform, and they need some robustness, they need some scalability, they need some portability, right? So these things it provides. It provides a very good portability that you can change from this DB to that DB, and it gives you a very less headache. I would say it gives you no headache at all, right? So that's what it does, Hibernate, right? I'll tell you about this, how to delete, how to update data, and other things about session factory, what you should not do. So I think tomorrow session will be able to finish the Hibernate. There are other things, joining table and all, because you guys don't have much idea of SQL. I will not confuse you more because I just want to give you the idea of how it works. how to set it up, how to write the simple queries. But if you don't have much idea of SQL, right, I cannot teach you much of this mapping and SQL join statement, because if you don't know the basic SQL join, I don't think you will be able to understand Hibernate joining, because that is more complex and you should be knowing first. So if you guys can have idea, or you can read about it, how what actually does is, what is the SQL join, how you can join two tables, how get the data from that. I'll provide you a link for your reference if you want to go from where I had learned. So you can go through. If you will have any issues, we can have session at the end. So by tomorrow I think we will be able to finish other things what is left in Hibernate, and then maybe the day after tomorrow I'll start one topic, that is spring. And the spring MVC will be having like how you can the same what we did with JSP servlet. These days exactly similar thing as I told you, like people does not use JDBC. In same thing, people does not use JSP servlet directly these days. They use the APIs provided using API built by that. I mean, Spring Hibernate. So here, if you see Hibernate, what actually does internally, it uses the JDBC only, right? But you are not writing the query of JDBC, but you should be knowing the same thing. Spring, what it does is actually internally it uses the JSP servlet and all this stuff only, but externally it will not let you do those stuff by you. It will do automatically internally, and externally it will provide you the APIs to write beautiful code and very secure and all these things, right? You might not feel the necessity of doing all this stuff right now, but if you once you go into the project, right, where you will be working in a use team, use project, there you will be seeing this lots of code is written there, and there are many classes, Java files, and all this stuff is there, right? There it's very necessary to modularize the code. There is very necessary to understand the flow of the code. Okay, so these things I'm covering so that you won't have any problem once you go into the real project and you see that how it works. Okay, so maybe the day after tomorrow, that is on Thursday, we'll have starting this spring. Maybe it will take 1 or 2 sessions, two sessions max, and then there will be one small topic that is called the web service. Maybe I'll finish it with spring only. So 3 4 sessions is left. So any questions, anything you can ask today, or maybe next session, or I'll have one buffer session where you can ask these things. Okay, is that fine?
Yeah,
So any questions with that, Amika? Anything? Any question? Nothing?
questions is like actually this is something so all messy we need to understand.
Yeah, I know. Hibernate is not, it's not easy. It takes time to understand because it uses the API internally, right? So it provides an abstraction. You need to understand each and every API. What this configuration does, what this standard service registry does. But I would suggest you to first understand, right, why we need to use all this stuff, right? Other than once you start working on it, once you keep practicing, right? See, I told you how to configure it, right? So now suppose you want to insert the data, or you want to get the data, or you want to do something, right? You keep you try that one. If you face problem, what do? You generally search on internet. You will find plenty of things, right? That's what I suggest people. I cannot cover everything in 1 month or 20 25 sessions, right? It's not easy. So the way is, I'm giving you the heads up. Okay, I'm giving the startup that, okay, you do something like this, you proceed like this is what it does, this is how it does. And then if you keep on working on that, you will eventually learn that, right? So it's not one day or 2 days work that, okay, I'll in 1 day or 2 day I'll cover everything and you will be mastering that. It will take time. Okay, so if you practice it, do try to set up all these things. I'll check in this code, try to set up in your environment, run it. You will face problem, try to resolve it. If not, I'll definitely help you, and then you can proceed. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Okay, see you tomorrow then. We'll now finish this Hibernate tomorrow. And if you have any questions, you can ask me today or maybe tomorrow. So that is fine then. Okay.